Seb, have you heard? Bartomeu, Barcelona president, he's out of there. He's gone.
He's mic dropped it on the way out.
He's mic dropped it. He has definitely mic dropped it. He's resigned as Barcelona president. He's taken his whole board of directors with him. There's a whole conversation to be had about why that's happened with regards to Messi fostering behind the scenes.
Big.
But before we get onto that, as he's left, he's gone. By the way, last thing I've done, I've kind of agreed to go into European Super League.
See ya.
You handle that mess.
Yeah,
What's that about?
I don't really know. I think the whole thing to me feels a little bit like, I don't think he wants to be going.
No.
I think he's been forced out. And I think he's trying to make a statement, a very selfish statement. Because if that is the case, and bearing in mind, FIFA continue to deny this is the case, official statement saying this is not the case, and they've got no record of Barcelona agreeing to do anything like this, or that even exists as a thing right now. I think he's just throwing a cat amongst the pigeons on his way out.
I mean, ironically, he's been forced to leave as a result of him making someone stay. If we go back a few months, Messi wanted to leave Barcelona. It's the end of an era at Barcelona. You can see they've not had a great start to the season by their standards. Ansu Fati, he seems to be the one coming out of this quite well, but the team is definitely in transition period. Messi wanted to leave. He believed he could because of a release clause at the end of his contract. He had to activate by a certain time. He didn't activate it by a certain time, but then he believed he could at a later date because COVID had extended certain contracts and whatnot. Barcelona were like, no, you can't. Particularly Bartomeu says, the president said, if you leave, you're going to have to get paid 500-600 million, whatever we want to, release clause or whatever we want to charge for you. Messi was like, well, you've blocked me moving, haven't you? I've got a case. I want to take it to court, but he doesn't want to go to court against the club, his boyhood club. So he did the bigger thing and said, look, I'm not going to sue my own club. I'm going to stay here against my will. But the minute that happened, I knew it was the end of Bartomeu. It's the same thing that happened with Messi at Argentina when he retired from international football, because really he wanted the whole organisation, people ahead of it to go. They all left. I fancy it again. I'm not saying he's going to necessarily fancy Barcelona long term now and stay there. I think there's a very good chance of that, Messi. And I think the writing was on the wall for Bartomeu when he made Messi stay. But today we're talking about the European Super League particularly, and it's been talking about this for years. I've made videos about it for years. No one wants it. I don't know a person that wants it. And when I say a person, I mean a fan. Owners want it. People, and even fans of clubs that are going to benefit, the Liverpools, the Uniteds, the Barcelonas, the Real Madrids, they don't want it.
What I feel like is a thing that's come about. And here's what I will say first and foremost, because I don't want it either, but it will eventually happen. It will.
Why?
Because nothing stays the same.
Yeah, but this is your like mantra and everything. So, I'll be like, you see red, that will be blue one day because red never stays the same.
That's not necessarily true. And while we're on that topic, red is different to everybody because everyone has different physical eyes, scientifically. But everything changes, mate. Premier League didn't exist, now we all love it.
Yeah.
The PGA Tour didn't exist, now we all love it.
Do we need
your Champions League changes formats? I'm not saying it's going to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to be in 5 years, but it will happen.
But will it though? I agree change will happen. And we already have a European league of sorts, it's the Champions League.
The FIFA Super League is their attempt to regain that power struggle and make sure they have the two top club and international properties. That's what it is.
And right now they're revamping the Club World Cup in the same way. They're trying to make that bigger tournament because no one really cares about the Club World Cup. Like, I mean, I actually do. I went to it. I thought it was great. But I mean, in terms of the teams that are in it care,
it's not competitive.
No, because there's one team for every continent. So which is what they're changing. They're making it bigger. So there's 100%, yes, there's a bit of a Cold War, or not even that Cold War, going on between UEFA and FIFA. That's not new. But it's just whether the result of that war has to be a league that takes precedence over domestic leagues.
So the
I don't think it should or does need to.
So that's one bit from FIFA. The other bit is let's just be really honest about it. Whatever they'll say publicly when it comes to a vote, whatever, the big six clubs want something like this when you're talking about financials. You're talking about the owners, you're talking about the shareholders. They want something like this because of the money, because they want to get what they see as their fairer share of broadcast revenues. They feel that right now, even though they benefit from it because they are featured in more games and because they have higher prize money, etc., they do get more money than the lower clubs in places like the Premier League. They want something more akin to what Barcelona and Real Madrid have had in the past. In Spain, where they get the lion's share of the revenue because they are the big pool. So the big six clubs in the Premier League want to solidify that, and they have an objective to achieve in that. FIFA have an objective to try and get the biggest club competition in the world. They're two pretty big power forces to want something for it eventually not to happen. The biggest force of all is the fans. Now, the fans definitely don't want it. I don't want it. You don't want it. I don't know many people that do want it. There were a few things thrown around by Project Big Picture that could be quite fun. Like, for example, I like the idea of a playoff between one of the championship clubs and one of the relegation clubs. So the things like that, I do like some ideas.
But that's just domestic improvement. That's actually something that's going to hurt.
This is bigger, yeah, you're right.
And I think that essentially Liverpool, and I'm just saying Liverpool as a random example, could be any of the Super League teams. They don't want to be playing Brighton. They want to be playing games against Huddersfield or whoever. They want to be playing against Madrid and Juventus and Munich. That's the fixtures they want.
Every week.
Doesn't mean the fans want it. Doesn't mean the fans want to be going to Bayern Munich away every 2 weeks. The Champions League now is enough. I actually think the Champions League was better last year when it was single leg knockout. We don't need it. Make it all neutral.
Make it shorter.
As a fact, it makes the event smaller. There's less fixture congestion. So it's going to, for example, how many teams have we seen in Premier League completely fall off form-wise when the Champions League returns in January and their fixture list becomes a joke, and they end up struggling domestically because they have too many games. If you have single-leg knockouts, that's ultimately, I am thinking, especially as a fan of a club whose team aren't in European competition, as what do I think is best for football and the fans? These people aren't thinking that. It's just a fact, guys.
Money.
The people running these organisations are thinking, how do we get as much money from the sport?
They think that football is a well that won't run dry, right? It will. We already have, I personally speak of this as what used to be a general football fan in this country, is I'd want to watch every bit of football, match of the day, I want to watch all of it, right? I don't feel that way anymore. I'm oversaturated to it. I've lost a connection to the elite level of football. I'm not as excited by games other than unless my fantasy players are playing.
How much has hashtag played a part in that?
Yeah, of course, it has a little bit because it's fulfilled a bit of my need to it, but I felt the way about it before hashtag as well. I was starting to go down that way. And what they think is more football means more fans, more viewership, more money. It won't. There's a tipping point where people are like, it's too much now. And if they go towards the Super League, I think that'll make supporting those top teams less enjoyable. And also I think it will obviously reduce the appeal of the Premier League. So you just move it around. I don't think that football is big enough, despite how massive it is, to support all these competitions. So it just...
Someone's going to lose out. It's going to be the smaller clubs. And it's a weird one because you're completely right. Real Madrid and Barcelona do have that setup where they do get the lion's share of TV money. We don't do that in England. And it does make sense from if you were the CEO of Liverpool,
that's why the Premier League's better than La Liga as a property.
Well, objectively, yes. But what I'm saying is if you were the CEO of Man United, you would have a case to say, guys, we're such a bigger club than Sheffield United, no disrespect. Why are we getting similar TV money? It does make sense on a business level, but on a football club level, it's a dangerous way to go. If you start allowing these bigger clubs to make more money inherently, then they're just going to go, the gap's going to get bigger and bigger, which is what's already happened, which is why the people at the top of the gap go, why are we playing with these guys anymore?
That's the proper problem of society. That's the capitalism, the capitalist world we live in, is that the way it's set up is the rich get richer, the poor get poorer.
That's the irony, I've mentioned this many times before on the channel, that American sports, America being the most capitalist country in the world, have the most socialist model.
Yeah, it's true.
Which if you look at it on the first glance, is true. Because the worst team gets the best player in the draft. They have salary caps, etc., etc. But what that fails to acknowledge is they do not have promotion relegation. You buy your way into the league, probably MLS. I don't know what it costs these days, hundreds of millions of pounds to get in there, right? And then you're safe. You're good. You can be awful and you do not go down. There is no reward for a really well-run USL club or whatever, unless they can put a financial package together and buy their way in. And there's no punishment for being a bad football team.
That's sort of it. American fans probably don't hate that because they've never had it, right? The beauty that Americans had when they designed their sports structure is that they were able to design it more akin to a modern world, whereas our football structure is so old that it just doesn't work really for a modern world, but it's got so much history. We've got all these clubs, communities, individuals that live off it. We can't just change it now.
Okay, we're right at the sort of, not quite the bottom, but near the bottom of the football pyramid, right? But the idea, one of the things that makes me love non-league is the idea that we can climb. If we're good at our jobs, we will climb. Exactly. And I don't think that's going to go anywhere, but what could happen with this Super League is that the place you can get to is just not paradise. Right now, you can get to the top. Salford City are on a mission to get to the Premier League, and they may or may not do it. By the time they get there, the Premier League could be a subpar competition. And it's in no way for them to get in. Now, they're talking about Super League maybe having some sort of qualification system where there might be like 50% of the teams in the field that are safe, the big founding clubs, the Man Uniteds, whatever. But then there'll be some that can qualify in. But then how does the team that qualifies ever become safe? How many hundreds of years do they have to do something for? How much billion do they have in the bank account? This is why
these things will change. But when I say that, I'm not talking about tomorrow. I'm talking about maybe 50, 60 years from now. These things take generation shifts because people like us and our age group, or even a little older than that, they're in these senior level roles within football, at governing bodies, at clubs. They still have a connotation, the people that can influence decisions but not make decisions, that aren't impacted directly by the big finances, but they're just protecting football, if you like, or what they should be doing is that. They have this feeling, and like us as fans support this feeling. as it becomes more and more a thing, and someone who's born today, when what their views are on football in 15 years from now will be a little bit influenced by the people above them, but they're also building a bit of their own. Then they have kids, they're watered down from the 2-3 generations above, starts to get filtered out, and they're only influenced by new modern worlds. By the time you get to 3 generations' time, it's just a whole new world, new viewpoint. Look how drastically society can change. People just care less about the history of the magic of the cup. I love it, but when I'll pass it down to my kids, the magic of the FA Cup, but it gets diluted along the way.
Well, I definitely agree that it'll change. I'm sure the Premier League won't be the Premier League one day. I'm curious as to whether we actually ever need a European league, though.
The only thing you can argue with that is that eventually travel will just get the world will get even smaller, right? So eventually there'll be a teleport.
Well, America do it now, right? And okay, they have the Western and the Eastern Conference, right? So you're not traveling across the country for domestic or for regular season games in MLS or any of the sports over there, but you're still traveling tremendous distances. Atlanta might play in New England or whatever. That's a long journey. So there's no reason why we can't be flying to Germany. And we do it already in the Champions League. We do it already. But it will be at the cost of the domestic league. And unless, this is not to get too political and too off football, but like some people believe, and I am someone that believes the world does need to go towards more of a global conscientiousness rather than a national one. Yeah. And so we start to look at ourselves as, not just, ironically, Europe. We've just left Europe, but as Europe and the world. So you can break down those systems of national governance. You don't have to go, who's going to win the English Premier League? Who's going to be the best team in the UK? So that way of thinking philosophically, yes, I like the idea of playing across Europe and doing all that. Bigger field and less boundaries. But in terms of the distance, in terms of the history, in terms of the idea of having a German champion, an Italian champion, because they're so culturally different, these countries. And even the football is different. The way to win the Serie A is very different to win the Premier League. Different. And the way you play football. So we're going to lose all those nuances of culture if we just...
We will lose them, but future generations will just see the upside as better than the downside. So I don't think it'll happen anytime soon. I think there's too much resistance to it, but that resistance, as I said, gets filtered out, and eventually the money will talk and it will happen.
I think the way we've got it now is good.
Yeah, I'm happy with it now.
This is what it is though. Like, we're in our 30s. We now get to the point where we don't like change. I've been someone that's been pushing to change the system for 10, 15 years, whatever, and now it's more, but it's not, I'm not against change. This is change for corporate greed. This isn't change for the good of the sport.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, we tried to reinvent football a little bit with things like the man down rule and the Wembley Cup. Like, I'm all for that reinvention. I'm all for the throw-in rule changing and Arsene Wenger's suggestions, or I think they need a little bit of work, but I like the idea of improving.
That's evolution. Not
I like
revolution.
the idea of goal line technology.
What you're saying is you don't want another Chris Evans on your hands.
That is what we want.
Okay, I'm your man.
You know what that's from? Leave a comment below. But yeah, change is fine. Change is inevitable. This change, I don't like the idea of it because I know the sentiments behind it, and it isn't for the good of the game. That's where we are, though. That's where we are. Ultimately, Messi wins, though, doesn't he? Messi wins. You cross with Messi, you're gonna have to leave the club.
Yeah, basically, don't mess with Messi.
Is Messi bigger than Barcelona?
Right now, apparently, yes.
He's just taken down the whole board.
Which is crazy because in 3 years, he'll just be a spectator.
A West Ham player.
Well, hashtag
player.
Lionel.
Call me. We're going to leave that one there, guys, but that's our first thoughts, if you like, on the potential European Super League. I don't know what Bartomeu was thinking when he said that comment. I don't know if he actually has agreed it in principle.
Well, it's got to be ratified by the fans anyway, hasn't it?
Yeah, season ticket holders have to agree to it, and it seems like that's inevitable. They're not going to. It goes back to my earlier point. I don't know of any fan that wants this league. I've not had a single conversation with anyone that said, I really like the idea of this. I've just not heard them. I don't think they exist. Are you someone in the comments below that wants this to happen, the European Super League?
Can we find one?
I want to hear from you. I want to know why. Okay, let us know in the comments. Drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed this chat about the potential European Super League and what's been going on at Barcelona. I've got some concerns for Barcelona. I don't know where they go from here.
Worrying.
The squad's not what it was. I don't think they're going to win the league this year. Clip that. That's going to come back to haunt me in 6 months. But no, I actually don't think they will. In the Premier League this year, we're actually seeing the most MLS or whatever like league you're going to get where anyone could win it based on, because we don't know what's going to happen. So these things like this will end that. This anyone can win on any day.
Do you know what as well is
gone
like,
forever.
What's happening in the Premier League right now is the most natural defence to this change in football. Because it's like, why would you want to stop this, guys? Look at this. How good is this?
Yeah.
Villa, Everton smashing it. Like, why change this?
Well, more of that, less of the Super League. Let us know if you agree. Subscribe for more. Check out Seb on Golf. Until next time, don't go changing. Don't go changing the leagues.